it's not what you do. I mean, none of our friends have ever said, hey, this is my domestic partner. You know, by allowing us full access to those rights, not even the rights as much as it is the identity of being married, the full access to being a full participant as a citizen of our country and our state that's denied. And when your state sanctions something that segregates you, it fortifies people's biases, in my opinion. And it gives them an excuse to say, you know, it's not right, you don't deserve it because the state tells us that. And to me, that's fundamentally wrong. It's rooted in something that's fundamentally wrong. Because all I'm desiring, all I want is to be married. And that affects no one except for my husband, my family, my friends, you know, our concentric circles. And you know what? If it bolsters our profile in our society and our world, you know, that's good. So be it. Because as long as we're sanctioned by our state to be told that we're different, regardless of how proud we want to be, regardless of how happy we are in our pursuits, we're still lacking. And to me, that's absolutely un-American. We're not a country about us and them. We're supposed to be a country about us, all of us, working in concert, doing things together. I mean, that's why we have these protections. My state is supposed to protect me. It's not supposed to discriminate against me.
Your Honor, I have no more questions.
Very well. Cross-examine.
Your Honor, would it be possible that we take our lunch break now? And
Well, that's a good idea. All right. Why don't we take our lunch and we'll recess until 1:30 this afternoon, and we will resume with cross-examination of this witness. Very well, counsel. As the witness is coming to the stand, let me mention something. I mentioned this morning comments received from the Federal Bar Association and others simply for completeness for the record, and to make sure that you have what is submitted to the court, although it pertains to the change in the local rules. In view of the proceedings of the Supreme Court, I think completeness of the record calls for that response of the Federal Bar Association to be made part of the record in this case, together with that submitted by the San Francisco Bar Association, an organization called the Equal Justice Society, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, and the American Civil Liberties Union, which appears to have been rather limber in the affiliations in this case. In addition, correspondence from the Director of the Administrative Office of the United States Courts to Chief Judge Kozinski, dated January 8, 2010, and Judge Kozinski's response to Mr. Duff and Judge Sirica, the chairman of the Executive Committee of the Judicial Conference of the United States. To the extent any of these matters have any bearings on the further proceedings, they should be part of the record, and you can deal with them as you think is appropriate. But you certainly should have access to these. So I will direct that the clerk have these filed in the record. All right, Mr. Cooper.
Further, Your Honor, to that question, how exactly will we have access to these documents you just referenced, number one? And number two, will we have access as well to the rest of this voluminous collection of comments?
You want to take a look at those 138,000 plus responses? I'd be delighted to have you do it. I just didn't want to burden the record with all of them, but they are available. And I can't say that I've read every one of them, but I have read many of them. They're certainly available to everybody. But I thought that the organizational responses, which deal specifically with the rules, would be particularly helpful to you.
And will those be available through PACER on the docket?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very well. Let me remind the witness, you still are under oath. The oath you took this morning applies to this part of your testimony. Do you understand that?
I do.
Mr. Rahm, I believe it is.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Very well.
Good afternoon, Mr. Katami.
Good afternoon.
We met December 10th. Do you recall?
I do.
It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
I would like to draw your attention to plaintiff's exhibit number 116. And if we could play that exhibit and have you take a look at that, that would be helpful.
Did you say 116?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, are you seeking to admit this exhibit? And you're showing it to the witness to see if it refreshes the recollection or if it's of general interest?
Your Honor, I would like to show the witness the video. It has to do with the issue of Prop 8, the campaign, and the theme that the kids would be taught about same-sex marriage in schools, which is something that he had testified to on his direct.
My question is a little more limited. Are you moving the exhibit in?
No, Your Honor, not at this time. I would like him to view the video and then identify it, and we will move it in at the appropriate time.
Your Honor, I have no objection to the video, so we can offer it at this time.
Very well. 116 will be admitted.
Well, okay. Mr. Katami, would you agree with me that the parents have the primary responsibility for raising their kids?
I agree that parents have a primary responsibility for raising their kids, yes.
And part of that responsibility includes the development of their moral character.
Part of that responsibility is that, yes.
And part of developing a child's moral character would involve issues of human sexuality. Would you agree with that?
I can't speak as a parent because I'm not one. I know that myself as a parent, that would be part of my responsibility. I mean, if I had differing views on certain aspects of sexuality, that would be my responsibility to impart that to my kids.
And you testified today that you desired to be a parent, ultimately.
I do.
Would you agree that issues relating to same-sex marriage are for parents to discuss with their children according to their own values and their own beliefs?
Well, I think that works in tandem to what they learn in society and in school, and then fortified in home, depending on what the home vision is.
And do you think that first and second graders should be taught about sex in the public schools?
I'm not part of any unified school district or school district at all, so I can't speak to what is taught or what is not taught. I mean, you would have to define what you mean by sex exactly and how that's taught.
Well, my question is to you. In your opinion, do you think kids as young as first and second grade should be taught about sex? In other words, traditional sex education, should that start in first and second grade? Do you think, you don't think that, do you?
Objection, relevance.
No, I haven't thought about it.
Let me rule on the objection before you answer it. Objection overruled. I think the door was open to this line of direct examination. Proceed.
Can you repeat the question, please?
You don't think that kids as young as first and second grade should be taught a traditional sex ed curriculum, taught about the particulars of sex between individuals, do you?
Well, again, not as a parent. I can't answer that question with any surety. I don't know. It depends on the curriculum. It depends on what's being taught and how it's taught.
Well, do you think that kids are in first and second grade have the capability to process issues of sex? Do you think that, Mr. Katami?
Well, I'm not an expert on child development. I can't speak for every child across the country, but I do know that children are growing up a lot faster than they used to. So, I mean, I guess there's a potential yes to that question.
Do you think it would be reasonable for someone, a parent, for instance, to disagree with you on that?
It's reasonable that they can disagree, yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have a problem with the public school teaching about same-sex marriage to first and second graders, would you?
Again, I don't know the curriculum of the school system. I don't know what is taught or how it's taught. So I would have to look at the curriculum and see what's being taught and how it's taught. And it's something that if it's something I disagreed with in my home and my children came to me and said, this is what I learned. It's my mutual responsibility to impart my vision on those children so they understand that there are altering views or methods.
Well, you had a particular objection to the Yes on 8 campaign ads to the extent to which that they pulled children into the equation. Isn't that a fact?
Well, it was the manner in which they pulled children into the equation, yes.
Well, I'd like to draw your attention to plaintiff's exhibit number 1. If we could bring that up, that would be helpful.
Previously admitted into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Katami, you testified on your direct examination that you had a particular problem with part of this exhibit, which is the official argument in favor of Prop 8 that voting yes would protect our children. You had a problem with that, didn't you?
I have an issue that...
Well, particularly...
I'm sorry?
Particularly, you took issue with being associated with something that was bad, that somehow you had to be protected from children. You had a problem with that. Is that correct?
I have an issue with the verbiage saying protect your children, because to me that insinuates that you have to protect them from something that's going to harm you.
Well, and did you find that the ads that brought the children into the equation and claimed that kids might be taught about same-sex marriage in schools was misleading?
I did feel it was misleading.
Well, I would like to draw your attention to the top of plaintiff's exhibit number 1, the top right-hand column. Do you see that? That is on 03365. Do you see the top right-hand column that starts with, "We should not accept"?
The resolution, I can't read it exactly. No, okay, there we go. Yeah, thank you.
Could you read the first 4 lines of that exhibit?
We should not accept a court decision that may result in public schools teaching our kids that gay marriage is okay. That is an issue for parents to discuss with their children according to their own values and beliefs. It shouldn't be forced on us against our will.
And in fact, that's what the Yes on 8, on Prop 8 campaign was seeking to protect children from. Am I right?
Well, I can't speak to know exactly what they meant outside of this or with this exactly, but again, the issue is with protect the children. I don't have an issue if it's taught in school. Again, the mutual responsibility is at home and with the parent. And ultimately, Proposition 8, for me, had nothing to do with children. I mean, we're missing the point completely here. This is, to me, a tactic to divert from what the truth of the situation is. Is that the state gave me a right, stripped the right away from me, and that right is something that I think is inalienably mine. And therefore, the issue of children is angering, is an issue and a problem to me because of the way it's presented. But is it the whole issue? No. Is what I consider potentially a diversion away from the issue? Yes.
The fact is you had a particular problem with the ads because you thought that they were misleading, that, in fact, kids were not going to be taught in schools. Is that true?
At one point, my understanding was to believe that kids may not be taught in school, that it wasn't for a fact sure that every state that would pass or legalize gay marriage would be required to teach gay marriage in school. So that, again, it becomes an issue for me based on the language, the tactic, and what it insinuates, which does not sit at the core of the issue for how it affects me.
Well, there is nothing in this ad that says that the Yes on Prop 8 campaign wanted to protect children against you because you were bad, right? I mean, it didn't say anything like that, did it?
This ad doesn't literally state.
That's not what I'm asking. It does not literally state it, does it?
This ad does not literally state that there is a harm. It insinuates one to me.
Thank you, Mr. Katami. And the video that we played about the couple in Massachusetts didn't say anything about the fact that same-sex couples were bad. It didn't say anything. It didn't say that in the ad, did it?
That ad did not literally state that same-sex couples are bad, but it is definitely insinuated in the emotion of the ad, in the language of the ad, in the bullet points that were obviously provided for the ad. I mean, yes, to me, that watching that ad absolutely insinuates that there is some disapproval of gay people and that they should be feared. Again, using the terminology protect your family, protect your children, every time you see that or hear that, to me it means you're protecting your children or family from something that's going to harm them. I mean, regardless if it states it not legitimately, if it states it literally or not. It does not legitimize the fact that these people are allowed to have their beliefs. But the minute they turn a belief into an action that legally sanctions my rights, there's an issue there.
So you believe that parents can disagree on the issue of same-sex marriage, but they have no right to do anything about it.
That's not what I said.
I see. The fact is that the ad that we played that has been admitted into evidence specifically points out that these parents were concerned that their kids would be taught about same-sex marriage in 1st and 2nd grade. That's what they were concerned with. And in fact, it did happen in Massachusetts.